The FNAF Security Breach Ruin DLC just dropped, so let's go over the lore and all the possible endings that you can get. So the game starts out with a young lady named Cassie, who's basically the new main character in this DLC. We see her sneaking into the newly abandoned Mega Pizzaplex in order to find and save Gregory. Now, a lot of people speculate on the relationship between Cassie and Gregory, and I think the reason that she is so willing to try to save him is because he's the only kid that actually showed up to her birthday party. But as this video progresses, we'll unpack the relationship a little bit more. Now, as Cassie is walking around, she finds a Roxy-talkie, aka just a walkie-talkie, and is able to hear Gregory's voice asking for help.
There! Are you there? I'm trapped!
Gregory? I got your message. Where are you?
Help! Something grabbed me! It won't let me go! You have to find me! I'm trapped in the sinkhole under the raceway!
Now, I'm sure that most of you have played through the main game and are aware of the many possible endings that you can get, and I'm pretty sure in all the endings, Gregory ends up outside of the Pizzaplex. He either escapes with Freddy in a car, leaves alone, and then is hunted down by Vanny. There's one where he's saved by Freddy because he tackles Vanny off the roof and the Pizzaplex is like burning down in the background. We also have the ending where they're getting chased down by Springtrap, but they still manage to escape. And then the best ending, in my opinion, where Vanessa, Freddy, and Gregory all survives, and it seems like Vanessa actually adopts Gregory. And my point in going over all these is to say there's no way that Gregory should be hiding out in this Pizzaplex. So off rip, this is very suspicious. Now, with this new information, Cassie sets off and she stumbles upon an item called a fast wrench and says it's just like her father's, who at this point we don't know anything about, but we can assume that he works on animatronics in some which way or form. Now, as Cassie continues to move through the Pizzaplex, she is jump scared by a few jacked up animatronics, one being Chica, and more importantly to the story, Monty, who comes out of a large pipe in the lower levels of the Pizzaplex, basically scaring her and making her fall into the water. And this is where I say that the game truly begins. Now, once Cassie is able to get out of the water and explore her new area a bit, she's greeted by a staff bot that's actually holding Vanny's mask, which we learn stands for Virtual Augmented Neutral Network Integration Unit. This mask gives Cassie a number of interesting abilities. She's able to repair and locate security nodes, she can see through objects and even pass through them if need be. And this also explains the abilities that Vanny/Vanessa had in the original game, and explains how even though she was a normal human, she had these seemingly supernatural powers. With her newfound abilities, Cassie continues looking for Gregory until he actually reaches out to her on a walkie-talkie again.
Don't stop looking for me! I need your help!
Gregory! Gregory! I can hear you!
If you can hear me, turn off all security! Turn it all off! Security nodes! Find them and turn them all off! I can't get out until that happens!
Now, obviously at this point, Cassie should have some red flags going off, but we have to keep in mind that she is really young. Now, with that being said, having a new objective, Cassie starts to find and disable the security nodes and completing AR security network puzzles. But as she's completing these tasks, an alert appears saying that there is an anomalous entity in the Vanny network. And we soon learn that the entity is this rabbit-looking robotic creature that is actually called the Entity, and he basically acts as a secondary antagonist of the DLC. And while we learn that this character isn't technically evil, he is willing to do evil things in order to complete his mission, which I'll explain later in the video. Now, once Cassie makes it to the next camera station, she notices that it's a dead end, but this is where Cassie learns that she can literally walk through objects, and she uses this ability to walk through the TV screen and ends up in the Superstar Daycare. And as Cassie starts to venture into this new area, she encounters the Superstar Daycare animatronic named Sun and Moon.
I am trapped in a gap! Reboot! We need to be whole!
You want me to reboot you? With this?
Lights on! Lights on! Turn generators on!
Now, it seems that since the Pizzaplex has been abandoned, Sun and Moon have been left in a state of complete disrepair. Sun basically begs Cassie to get the generator working again so that Moon can never take over again. And when you look through the camera, you can clearly see Sun struggling to stay into control. And after Cassie is able to get the generator on again, we're introduced to a character named Eclipse. And it seems like Eclipse is more akin to Sun rather than Moon because he's very kind and surprisingly flies Cassie to her next location. Next, we see some animatronics that most people will recognize, and those are the exoskeleton. These guys are scary because if you're not facing them, they'll begin to move towards you, similar to the mannequin game that came out that everybody was playing like a month back.
All right. Oh! So you're active now? Oh, woo, wait a minute.
Cassie is lucky though because the Vinny mask basically allows her to be invisible to animatronics. The scary part being, of course, that if she keeps the mask on for too long, the entity will start to track her down. Next, we see that Cassie has to crawl through some vents and then take a short trip on this little dino cart that almost sends her to her death because it crashes. But she is able to survive and she gets another call from Gregory.
Cassie, where are you?
Gregory, I made it to Catwalks. You said I could get to the raceway from here?
Hold on. The schematics say there's a way to redirect the gondolas to the maintenance room. Deactivate the security node, then use the track controller.
Now, the fact that he conveniently gets cut off before he can answer any questions should be adding even more suspicion for Cassie here. But being determined to find her friend, Cassie clears the catwalk area and she soon finds another camera station and is able to see a very damaged Chica walking around the area. And the funny thing here is, even if you manage to sneak by her, she still tries to grab you before you can leave the area, and she gives you a nasty jump scare. Now, after disabling more nodes, we gain access to the Upper East server room, which low-key looks dope. And this is where a funny little bit happens. Our little robo buddy tells us that the entity shouldn't be able to reach us here, and it basically makes it to where Cassie cannot remove the mask until she deactivates all the security nodes in the west. But shortly after completing some of the tasks, the entity is back and seems to be even larger than before. My favorite part about this is when Cassie questions the little robo buddy, it responds with saying, "I said should be safe," taking no responsibility at all. Now, after Cassie escapes the server room, we actually run into Roxy, who is definitely still looking for Gregory because she has not forgiven him for taking her eyes. When she hears Gregory's voice over the walkie, she takes off to find him. After she leaves, Gregory comes back on the walkie-talkie trying to get Cassie to hurry up, claiming that Roxy is close to him. Now, after this, Cassie goes down even lower into the facility and ends up in an area that has been flooded, and even worse, Monty is in the water.
Monty?
Cassie basically has to do some leapfrog on the boxes to avoid the water and open a door at the end of the hallway. And if she is successful, she'll also give Monty a huge shock. Now, in the next area, Cassie has to avoid Roxy, who seems to be hunting for Gregory. Now, no matter how well you sneak, Roxy does end up finding you, and she says,
Give me back my eyes!
Ah! Let go! Let go!
I'm sorry. Error.
And I don't think anybody is surprised to find out that Roxy isn't actually interested in hurting Cassie. She seems only really content on getting to Gregory. After this interaction, Cassie gets into contact with Gregory again and says that it may be time to call the police. But Gregory doesn't agree with this, which of course should be another huge red flag. And ignoring her better judgment, Cassie continues down even lower to try to find her friend. When Cassie finds the next video station, she notices that there's a bunch of little music men, or tiny DJs as she called them, and she basically has to avoid these guys while trying to disable the rest of the nodes. And after completing that task, Cassie is able to find a vent that leads to the Phaser Blast. And after exploring this area for a bit, Cassie runs into a nearly destroyed version of Freddy, or a prototype Freddy. He seems to be missing a head and have a huge jagged hole in his chest. And then a crazy chase sequence takes place that is actually pretty scary, if I'm being honest. But once you escape him, you get to hear from Gregory again, and he reveals the final security node.
Gregory, I shut down all the security nodes. I'm in the Roxy party garage. Am I close?
Almost. There's still one node left that's keeping the underground sealed.
Where?
Roxy's the final node. You need to deactivate her.
But
Deactivate her and save me. Save me, Cassie, please. It's so dark down here.
Now, at this point, some people thought that it was weird that Roxy would be a security node, but in Cassie's defense, she has seen evidence that Roxy wants to hunt Gregory down. So while it does seem weird to us, it does kind of make sense that this would be some logic that will fool a little girl. Next is this super sad scene between Roxy and Cassie.
Roxy.
Cassie. Cassie. Welcome back, Cassie.
You remember me?
Your special day. I remember. Your special day.
Do you still like carrot cake? It has been some time since I saw you last. If I remember correctly, it is on the 11th. I remember because you are number 1. Twice. Have you booked your party? I'm sure your friends will show up this time. Cassie? What are you doing?
So sorry.
I love carrot cake. Happy birthday, Cassie.
Roxy. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And after this, we can tell that Cassie is saddened by what she's done, especially since Roxy has been super sweet to her, but she carries on for the sake of Gregory. She reaches the elevator and starts her descent. She then takes a tunnel into a weird cavern / factory type area and finds a room with a computer that allows her to deactivate the security protocols, which it seems gets rid of the entity for good. And this is when Cassie notices that the door that Gregory is trapped behind has been sealed over with concrete and uses a forklift to break it down. Now, this is where most people playing the game probably realized that the entity wasn't necessarily evil, but was actually just acting as security for whatever was behind this wall. And this is where we're actually introduced to the main antagonist of this DLC, which is the Mimic, who has been pretending to be Gregory.
I'm Gregory. Cassie, get out of here! Run!
Now, thanks to Roxy being the GOAT, Cassie has a few moments to actually speak to the real Gregory, who we learn has been out of the Pizzaplex this whole time. Now, there are 3 different endings for the DLC. Each ending starts with Gregory giving Cassie directions. Now, the first ending has Cassie actually running through these tunnels, and then she seems to run through a wall, which you know she has the ability to do, but it seems like it's a dead end after that. She has nowhere else to go. The good news is that the Mimic doesn't seem to be able to get to her, but the bad news is that she doesn't seem to be able to get out without going back to him. And you can tell by her panic breathing that this is definitely not a good ending for her.
Cassie, I'm okay. I found a spot to hide.
The second ending is the worst in my opinion. In this ending, Cassie actually makes it to the elevator, but then she hears Gregory say this.
Cassie, it's me. I think I need to explain a few things. You were never supposed to go to the Pizzaplex. That thing in the sinkhole tricked you. I really don't know what it is, but it's been trapped down here a really long time. The Nexus security program was designed to keep it hidden, but you shut down the security, and now it's free. It's not your fault. I know you did it for me, to save me, but we can't risk being followed. I'm sorry.
Gregory? No!
Now, while I understand why Gregory did it, the betrayal here is crazy. I would have to think that if somebody went out of their way to try to save me, even if I wasn't actually needing saving to begin with, I would have to be 10 toes down with that person. I don't think I could betray them, knowing that they would have my back in that way. The last ending is probably the best for all involved. Cassie makes it to her room where she pushes a button, and then this happens. Now, the thing that grabs the Mimic from behind is called the Scooper, which I believe first appeared in FNAF's sister location. The Scooper basically disassembles animatronics, removing the endoskeleton, which is why the tiger suit is laying still at the end. The Mimic has literally been ripped out and isn't in the costume anymore. And while this is the best ending, it still leaves a few questions, such as, does Cassie make it out safe? Does Roxy survive? And do Cassie and Gregory ever meet up? But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video and want me to cover other parts of the DLC, let me know down in the comments. Subscribe to become a member of the Orseofkorse, and we'll see you tomorrow with another video. Peace, peace.